Hello and welcome to one and all. So in this class, we'll continue with the NABARD. So we have finished whatever are the functions of NABARD, isn't it? So now let us check out what are all some of the projects, some of the financial activities which are undertaken by NABARD. That is NABARD and Rural Credit. So the first important project which have been undertaken by NABARD is something called as the Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, popularly known as the RIDF. So the name itself says it is for the development of infrastructure facilities in the rural areas. So the government of India, they created the RIDF in 1995-96. Okay, so the government of India created RIDF in NABARD. I mean, NABARD was asked to create a separate fund mainly for the purpose of lending that fund for the purpose, mainly for funding the development of infrastructure in the rural areas. So for that, this fund was created in NABARD in 1995-96. Okay. So this fund is, so to whom the NABARD is, these funds are provided, who is responsible for developing the infrastructure in the rural areas. So we have seen, isn't it, one of the functions of NABARD to provide provide loans, direct financial assistance to state governments, NGOs and all, isn't it? So this fund is directed to state governments and any other state-owned corporations who are involved in, I mean, only these are all the agencies who are involved in the development of rural infrastructure. So the purpose for which the fund is used may be for to develop, either to develop or to complete the ongoing projects. Like for example, so many irrigation projects which are still ongoing, isn't it? So either to develop or to complete the rural infrastructure projects such as irrigation projects, and apart from that, rural roads, basically the whatever that rural infrastructure development, or including even the watershed management. So for all these projects, this rural infrastructure development fund is being utilized. So this fund is created in NABARD on the advice of the government. Okay. So that is the that is one of the areas where the NABARD assistance is providing to the rural area. Okay, then the next activity or the next project of NABARD, next important project of NABARD is something called as the microfinance innovation. So what is the meaning of microfinance? The name itself says microfinance means what? Sorry. So microfinance refers to small amount of finance, isn't it? That is micro. Small amount of finance or credit requirements. This is what it means literally, isn't it? So now, what are all the financial requirements of the poorer sections of the population? So when you talk about the financial requirements of poor, so they one thing they need is they cannot afford a large amount of loan, isn't it? Because they don't have that kind of earning capacity and repaying capacity. So most often they need smaller amount of loans. That is one feature, smaller amount of loans. And they also they require extended repaying capacities. So extended repaying capacity, or what you call more EMIs. That is another feature. And they need cheap credit. That is, they need credit at less rate of interest, and they cannot offer any collateral security. So these are all the basically the financial requirements of the poorer sections of the population in the country. So normally what happens, mostly the smaller amount of loans, I mean, if the amount of loan is huge, then the repaying capacity can be extended. The rate of interest is also be lesser, but the smaller amount of loans, it will carry a high rate of interest. So either it's a smaller amount or a huge amount, security is a must. So no banks or no financial institution. First of all, the amount is very, very small. No bank will be willing to lend loans. That is one thing. And another thing, no bank will be willing to lend without any security. And they will also will not charge lesser rate of interest. So these were all the problems faced by the poorer sections of the population, especially in the rural areas. So their requirements is not a huge amount of finance. Their requirement is the microfinance at these terms and conditions. So they were finding it very difficult to get these types of loans from the existing financial institutions in the country. So in order to solve this problem, the microfinance, the idea of microfinance lending the small amount of loans emerged in our country in 1970s. So the idea of meeting these requirements through, so that's why it is called as a microfinance. Through microfinance was started in our country in 1970s. The original idea of this microfinance was by a Nobel Prize winner named Yunus Khan of Bangladesh. So he was the one who created this idea of microfinance and became very successful in Bangladesh. Okay, so the same idea here also in India also it emerged in the 1970s. So basically, the microfinance assistance is provided to the people. So mainly to rural and urban poor. Any rural and urban, any poor person belonging to rural area or urban area, either for business or including for self-employment. So including for self-employment. Basically, the idea is to free them from the clutches of money lenders. Okay, to free them from the clutches of money lenders. See, the other day we have seen when the government started the institutional sources of finance, institutional sources of credit, one of the objectives we have seen that slowly, gradually, the government wanted to eliminate the money lenders from the rural scenario, isn't it? So like this, so all these rural people, since they are that is another, we have seen that money lenders are easily accessible and easily approachable, and they lend both for productive as well as unproductive purpose, we have seen, isn't it? And since the existing banks were not lending small amount of finance, most of these poor people they were going to the money lenders to obtain a small amount of finance. And for that small amount of finance, they have to pay heavy rate of interest. So in order to rectify that mistake, in order to free the people from the clutches of money lenders, this microfinance concept was introduced in our country, okay, or adopted in our country also. And actually, the major beneficiary, of course, even though it is for everyone, any rural and urban poor, any person, any poorer person can avail the benefit of microfinance. But this major beneficiary of this microfinance happens to be the SHGs, the self-help groups. So the major beneficiary of microfinance scheme was the self-help groups, SHGs. I mentioned to you what is a self-help group. It is a voluntary association of women, rural women, poor women, and they start a business. Like for example, the handicrafts and all, no? So like that, they start a business. And for that, this microfinance assistance is being provided. Now, what is the connection between this microfinance and NABARD? Okay, so it was NABARD is the one that was responsible for making that linkage between the self-help groups, banks, and the microfinance. Meaning what? The banks and the commercial banks in the country were advised to lend loans to these self-help groups. So earlier we have seen that commercial bank, they were all not lending small amount of credit. So now the commercial banks, they were advised to lend small amount of credits to the self-help groups and to whichever commercial banks that are lending this microfinance to the self-help groups, NABARD is providing the refinancial assistance. So that is the connection between NABARD and the microfinance. Okay. So the self-help groups, microfinance, and the banks connection, that is a linkage, started in India in 1991-92. So as I mentioned, that is nothing but that is the commercial banks are advised to lend this microfinance facility to self-help groups, and NABARD refinances those commercial banks. So that means whichever commercial banks which are lending loans to the self-help groups, so those loan amount will be refinanced by NABARD. Okay. So as of now, it is, the limit is up to rupees 25,000. So up to rupees 25,000 is lent without any security. Without any security. Okay. So this is the next important project in which NABARD is directly involved. Okay. Then the third activity was supplying the Kisan credit card scheme. So the farmers are given the Kisan credit card scheme. This is just like our credit card, but they have to use for working capital requirements, short-term needs of the farmers by purchasing seeds, fertilizers. For any working capital for the short-term requirements, the farmers can use the credit card. So it is based on the like what you say, revolving credit facility. Revolving credit facility means you withdraw the, there is a limit. So the farmers can withdraw the money up to that limit, and they have to repay, invest in the business, and they have to repay. After repaying, again they can withdraw the money again whenever it is required. That is the meaning of revolving credit facilities. So the farmers are provided a passbook. Just like a normal, whatever we have that credit card and this, isn't it? So this is mainly for every farmer is provided with the passbook, KCC passbook, and they can use that credit card up to a certain limit for working capital or the short-term credit requirements. So that is the Kisan credit card scheme. Okay. So for this also, NABARD is providing the refinancing assistance. Okay. So this one, basically it was introduced in 1998-99. So the thing, each farmer is provided with the passbook. So what is the purpose? So the purpose is to provide mainly short-term credit. Short-term credit to farmers based on, as I mentioned, revolving credit facilities. So revolving credit, as I mentioned, first withdraw, invest, then repay, then again withdraw. So who is providing? So this is provided by all the commercial banks, RRBs, and cooperatives. RRBs, cooperatives, and commercial banks are providing this assistance. Okay, and the NABARD is, supposed to provide the refinance facility. So as of August 2022, a credit limit of rupees extending from rupees 10,000 to rupees 50,000. So 10,000 to rupees 50,000 is offered to marginal farmer. That is a credit limit offered to marginal farmers based on Kisan Credit Card Scheme. To marginal farmers. Okay, so up to that limit, they can withdraw. And of course, they have to repay and then they can withdraw again. So this is the, of course, they can use only for the production purpose. So these are all the some of the major activities in which the NABARD is involved. And this is up to the agricultural credit. Okay. And next topic we'll cover with the rural indebtedness, which I will explain to you in my next class. Okay. So if you find this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any doubts, please mention it in the comment box. Okay. So until my next class, take care. Bye-bye.